So hi, Lauren.
Hi Dave, how are you?
I'm great. It's been a minute since you and I chatted on the podcast.
It has, thanks to annual leave and a lovely, well overdue family holiday. I've been off
Yep.
for a couple of weeks, so yeah, it's been great. I feel refreshed. I hope I look refreshed.
I hope to look as refreshed as you later next year when I go on one too.
Yeah, yeah, I definitely recommend it. It was great. So
So
yeah, glad to
there's
be
there's
back.
um there's a lot has happened since you've taken your little soiree with your family, and we're
Yeah,
also today trialing a brand new podcast platform. Up until now, everything we've done has just been recorded on you on our Zoom and uploaded
yeah,
to YouTube. And now we're trying to sort of have a broader
we're moving
reach.
on.
So this platform will hopefully upload into different um, podcasts and platforms that we can get a broader reach and talk to more people. So fingers
Yeah,
crossed
yeah,
it
it's
works
exciting.
well.
Yeah, yeah. No, it is exciting. I think you and I have both spoken, and it's nice to sort of, share that with the industries that we've had quite a few requests for, can you put it on more platforms because we want to share it around and, it's really starting to reach a lot of people. So that's exactly what we planned it for. And yeah, it's exciting to kind of take it to the next level and up our game a little bit, Dave.
A little bit, a little bit.
Yeah.
Now, one of the big changes that's happened in the past sort of 8 weeks or so, or announced at least, is in the finance world for
Yeah.
people that want to buy and invest in SDA property. Now, you and I,
Mm,
we've chatted many times about there's oversupply areas, there's different people doing unethical things, there's spruikers and grifters out there ripping people off.
yeah. Yeah.
And it's a pet peeve of mine, and I know that we have a lot of chats about it. And we have so many customers come to us literally every week and say, "Hey, I'm nearly finished the house. Can you find me some SDA tenants, please?" Only to learn that they bought a bad design in a bad location, and they're just never going to get what was promised to them. Um,
Yeah. Yeah.
so these changes, um, and it's been made by a company called Colcap, which is an acronym for Columbus Capital. Now, Columbus
Hmm.
Capital or Colcap sits above a lot of other second tier lenders um, that planners and spruikers and marketing groups go to get finance for investors looking to buy these homes.
Yeah. So
So
a
they've
big,
made
a
some
big impact.
changes, Lauren. They've made
Mm.
some pretty fundamental changes that really put the handbrake on how people can borrow money
Yeah.
to build STA homes.
Yeah. Yeah. And,
Now,
I guess that's what we want to discuss today is what impact do we think this is going to have on the industry and is it a positive change? Is really the essence of it. And, a lot of us, I think the tail end of the market where we sit, where we're dealing with, investors that are at that completion time and or have been sitting with a vacant property for a long time, this will hopefully alleviate some of those conversations in the future, 12 months down the track when the change in these rules really has that flow and effect into the industry.
yeah,
And overall, if I'm going to blanket it, I would say that it is a positive change. It is showing that the industry needs to move and needs to be aware of the risk these people are taking in buying into an industry that is not a straightforward real estate industry and has a whole lot of complexities that they have to try and be across before they make a decision on where and what to build. So I think it is definitely positive. It's also probably going to upset the apple cart for a good 6 to 12 months while the deals that are in the pipeline for people or the properties that are under construction or just signed off on land and not started construction, those ones are going to have a bit of a bumpy period. But I think it is in the end to protect them from being, that owner that sits there with a terrible property at the end of the day. Mm.
well, go through some of these changes one by one. We can discuss some of them.
Sure.
So I've got a little list. Um, and so the top line headings, and we'll get into each one, is deposit amounts, number of builds, where you can build, um, recommendations from different people before you can build, um, whether you're an experienced investor or not, what you earn, how much money you have behind it, and how much of the SDA revenue will go into calculations towards the property with the finance estimates. Okay, so
Okay, great. Hmm.
firstly, deposits. Um,
90
Colcapper
to
said,
80, I believe.
yeah,
Yeah.
you've got to have 20% deposit. They're only going to lend you maximum 80%. You've got to
Mm.
find, you've got to find 20% plus all your closing costs.
Yep.
So what
Yeah.
do we think?
Well, I think it's going to push investors to make sure they're very responsible for their money, like, and they really want to put all of their cash into that deposit. And look, from where I'm standing, we were in the industry for years while the LVR was at 60/40.
Mm.
So 80/20 still doesn't sound too bad to me, but I know that it was really a great opportunity for other people to come into the industry when it went to 90/10. So look, dropping it back down so that people have to put more money into it means that you will cut out some of those investors that don't have as much of a deposit. And people are going to have to really think about, okay, is this where I want to put my cash? I hope it will spur them to do more investigation and really a bit more due diligence and take a bit more responsibility for that money they're putting into the deal.
Agreed.
Um, yeah,
I think 80/20 is, you know, you look at commercial loans out there at the moment, and again, I've said many times that I'm in, excuse me, I'm in the commercial property space.
mm,
And in the commercial property world at the moment, you're only getting maybe 55%. You've got to find 45% of an acquisition. You might
that's
get
it.
better terms at 60/40, but 80/20 for something like this is very, very reasonable, and
Very,
it'll knock out some people who maybe just sailing a bit close to the wind, who really shouldn't get into
yeah.
this. And there's other investment opportunities out there. Maybe SDA
Mm,
isn't for you at this time. So yep, great.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Um, they've also said, as a private investor, you can only have a maximum of one SDA build on the go at any one time. Doesn't matter how much money you got. You could have $10 million sitting behind you, but if you're Joe Bloggs and you want to build an SDA home and borrow money from Colcap, one at a
Mm.
time.
Yeah, yeah, and that's proving to be a little bit difficult for a couple of the clients that have got, multiples on the go. But I think what they're trying to do in that instance is when somebody's been given this sour advice on, build in perhaps even those suburbs that have now been banned.
Mm.
They
Oh,
they have.
you're letting the cat out of the bag. You got
Okay,
to.
okay, I'll backtrack, but perhaps somebody has got a decent deposit there, and they've gone, you know what, I'm going to diversify. I'm going to buy one in Victoria, one in Queensland, and one in WA, all at the same time. Construction starts, and off they go. Quite often they're buying at that low price point
Yeah,
to be able to stretch that money further, thinking that that's going to de-risk their investments. But
yeah,
unfortunately, if it's being sold by the same company, often the strategy is the same, and it's buy out west and hope the tenants come. And we all know that that
yeah.
recipe
We
doesn't work. So,
we've had several people come through the doors this year that have bought two or three properties simultaneously, and
yeah,
all of them have been lemons.
that's
And
right.
so it's
Yeah,
one thing to sort of be in trouble with one property, and even if you're a high earner, you're doing well, trying to carry the mortgages for around $3 million worth of stock with no revenue.
it's
That's a bad
huge.
beat.
Yeah. And I think
So
it should diversify the market there where you've then got sophisticated investors that are, if they've got a chunk of money to do 3 or 4 or 10 SDA developments at one time, they're going to be able to look at different ways to borrow in order to make that happen simultaneously. But the
yeah,
everyday mum and dad investor that perhaps doesn't have that understanding and knowledge of how to do that complex borrowing is just going to have to do one at a time and learn the lessons slowly, which is a safer way. It definitely
yeah,
de-risks that
100%.
component.
I have a
Yeah.
view that these grifters, they target the less literate investors and try and get them as much as they get them leaving into the market as much as they can to sell as
Yeah,
much property as they can.
that's right. It's a
And they're the
numbers
ones that
game.
are the sophisticated guys. And we have conversations with people who are extraordinarily literate in property investing, and they see it and they go, "Hang on, let's ask them more questions," and they tend to do it better. Okay,
Yeah,
now
agreed.
you alluded to it a moment ago.
Oh,
There's Colcap has come out with a list of suburbs all around the country that they simply will not fund anymore because of oversupply due to
yeah,
spruiker stock and grifters flooding that area with property. I was on a
yeah.
webinar just a couple of nights ago with a marketing group who's associated with an SDA provider in Victoria. Quite a good group, doing the
Mm,
right thing,
mhm,
working with an SDA provider, so they've got the evidence for where to put it. They've got a
yeah,
particular strategy. It's not greenfield crap. quite good.
Yeah.
And they were aware of entire new suburbs that have been built out in these greenfield areas, entire suburbs, where
Yeah.
out of the entire suburb, 90% of the builds are SDA.
Wow. Wow.
Not
That's
like
crazy.
that's so beyond bonkers.
I mean, the
It'll
strategy
take 50
behind it is
years
completely gone.
to,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah. And it comes back to, when the NDIS laid out SDA and all those early adopters in the industry came and sort of, seeded those thoughts, like, what does this mean for the industry? And what is the primary reason that people with a disability really fought for an SDA program within the NDIS? And it was to be able to live a normal life and to be able to live regular, like a regular life in a regular community where they weren't isolated, they weren't all dumped together, there was no institutionalization. And this is the complete disconnect it shows between investment money or real estate business money changing the core of what SDA was for.
yeah,
A whole suburb of SDA, like who wants to live there?
yeah. I heard that. I went,
Yeah.
wow, that's. I mean, I knew there was some, and it was mostly the same marketer. So they can't say, oh, we didn't know there was other stock there. They did it,
Yeah,
right?
exactly.
That
Yeah,
that
that's
that in my world, I know there's no law against it, but that's criminal. That's straight up
yeah, it is.
criminal.
It is.
All right, so
Yeah.
a couple of recommendations from, well, not a couple of rules from Colcap
Can,
are,
can I,
yeah,
sorry, can I just backtrack one moment there? Just on the postcode thing, and it's something
mm,
I've been thinking about the last couple of days. With those postcodes, I highly suggest that everyone do a bit of a location map of those in their head when they're presented something. I think it's a really good due diligence tool that you could basically just create on your own, and you look at what is around those suburbs, how far away it is from facilities,
yep,
what's essentially a cross against that location, and you make sure that anything else you get presented doesn't look like that or close to. And
yeah,
I would
that's right.
broaden the scope of that too quite
Yeah, I
considerably.
mean, it's one thing like an area. One of the suburbs mentioned is a suburb called Clyde North in Victoria. It's one of many,
Mm.
right? So if you're looking to invest in an SDA property in Clyde, and that you know that Clyde North has been struck off on the list as being oversupplied, you know
Sounds
that
like
Clyde is going to, it won't be as bad, but it's still pretty grim.
that's right.
So
Yeah,
you don't want to invest in maybe an adjacent property either because there's just
that's
not
right.
enough demand.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. Just wanted to
Um,
point.
yeah, yeah, yeah. So now there's two more requirements that Colcap has introduced. Now, when I say Colcap has introduced this, that also means anyone that sits beneath Colcap must
Mm,
follow the same rules, right? So
mm,
Granite, other lenders, Access, they've all got to now follow the same rules because Colcap's a senior lender.
yep.
Um, an investor needs a letter from their financial advisor that they understand the risks and it's recommended as a part of an investment strategy. And they need a
Okay.
letter from an SDA provider that it's a good area, there's demand, and there's really good prospects of getting what they say they're going to get on the marketing literature. What do you think?
Mm. Mm, mm. So that's an interesting one. It's something I think that originally a lot of people were trying to get from not only us, but I'm assuming other SDA providers as well, so that they could actually get that lending back in the early days when it was 60/40 and no one knew what SDA was and how to value it and how the hell do we actually lend on that. So it's sort of pushing it back to those early days. But what I think the difference will be here is that SEA providers are not going to put their name to something that they know is going to be difficult to fill,
See,
because there's that sense of responsibility and accountability to the results. And we say it all the time: we can't guarantee you clients. And by the time your property is built, the market might well have shifted quite considerably, either better or worse. You don't know. It might stay constant. But putting your brand and your name to we say you're going to get X amount is going to be something that's quite risky for SDA providers to do, and I don't think will be provided lightly by good
mm,
providers.
yeah,
Mm.
I'd be happy to write something to words to the effect of, in comparison with local suburbs, this one offers a better prospect of attracting what's been advertised on the literature, and then all of the risks about it might not be this way in 12 or 18 months,
Yep.
but as long as it's not a oversupplied area like your Clyde Norths, like your Ripleys, like your Harvey Bays, Mount Lows, anything like
Mm.
that, right?
Mm.
That's where you say, listen, I can't give you the letter, Sarah. I can't write
Yeah.
that letter.
And if I write you the letter, your finance is going to say don't buy it. So, like you may as well just stop now.
Yeah. Okay.
Mm.
This is an interesting one, and one that I've thought about quite a lot. And the more I think about it, the more I agree.
Okay.
And again, doesn't matter how well-to-do you might be. If this is your first property investment, you can't buy an SDA.
Mm. Mm. Oh, is that the rule? Sorry, I mustn't have put that
Yeah,
right.
that's one of the outcomes.
Mm.
It
I
can't be your
mean,
first investment.
I don't think that's a bad thing either.
Yeah,
Yeah, yeah. Although, there's been plenty of first timers that have actually done their due diligence because I think sometimes they're a little bit more concerned about where their money's going than perhaps.
I wonder if you looked at all of the bad stories, all
Mm,
of the horrific train wreck stories. Wonder how many of those are first-time investors.
yeah, yeah.
It must be overrepresented for Colcap to say if because and I get it. Like it
The bad
takes
properties would be overrepresented by
first timers.
unexpecting, yeah,
Yeah,
first
because I
timers.
mean, you and I have spoken about this a little bit as well. It's just property investing can be really complicated for a very
Mm,
vanilla, four-beddy double garage house in the burbs.
yeah,
And you and I have a lot of experience in that
done them
property,
before. Yeah,
right?
mm,
We've put hundreds together, you and I, over the years.
yeah,
And that's tricky enough. And then overlay the SDA stuff, and I did a recording while you were away with one of our staff, Shona,
yeah.
who has built her own SDA property for her own kids, and
Yes,
she
yeah,
worked within SDA within NDIS for many years,
yeah.
and she's really good with. She knows all the rules, knows all the stuff, but
Yeah,
building
she's a
an
savvy
SDA home,
investor herself. Yeah,
but it was just confounding. She really had to get right into it.
yeah,
SDA
yeah,
homes, it's just such another layer of complexity. I think it's nothing but a good thing that first time investors have been excluded. You really need to go and do something else, get some
yeah,
experience in the property market, buy an apartment off the plan, build a
yeah,
house, renovate something,
yeah.
go and understand the process with builders and councils and banks and loans. And there's so
And
much to
tenants
do.
and returns and what it actually costs you and see the money coming out of your bank. So get
It,
a
it,
get a run on the board
and
and then
I
come back.
got I got three maintenance requests for one of my properties this week for a single property. It's a standard
Yeah,
property. There's a
yeah,
pool pump, a power point, and a circuit breaker just on a and SDA properties.
yeah,
There's so much more to it, right?
yeah,
My wife's
absolutely.
like, "Do we need to sell that property?" I said, "No, it's
That's
just one
just
of
a
those
property
weeks."
cycle. It'll go away. It'll settle. It'll settle.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
But
No, it
there's
is good.
so
I think
you,
that's a
you
good
need
thing.
Yeah, I think you need. So if you're watching this and you're a first timer, um, there's so many other great investment opportunities out there. Don't get sucked in by the 15% purported returns. Go and buy something else. Investment's the long game. You're going to be doing this for the
Yeah,
next 30 or 40 years. It's
that's
okay.
right.
It's
Yeah,
okay. And
yeah,
then once you've got some time up, got some time in the saddle, then come buy an SDA.
that's
Okay.
it.
Um,
Agreed.
there's the rest is around income minimums. You need to earn a certain amount to be able to fund it. If it's vacant, you need a minimum 6 month cash in
Revenue.
bank buffer. If it
Mm,
sits vacant for 6 months, really smart. And
mm.
for investment return calculations, Colcap will only accept up to 70% of the estimated income. So if someone's
Okay.
telling you, even if the deal stacks up and you're going to get two tenants it's going to be 160 or $70,000 per year, they're only going to calculate 70% of that
As
as
a
revenue.
possibility.
Yeah.
And look, that particular point I find really comforting. When we're talking to investors, and we've got properties in really great locations coming on at the moment, what we see is still that sense of excitement from an investor that still hasn't done it before. But yes, they've chosen a good property and they've chosen a good area and they've got a good builder and they've ticked a lot of boxes, so they're feeling really confident. But at the end of the day, you still can't guarantee the timeline you're going to get your first tenant in. And you still can't guarantee exactly what SDA approval that tenant's going to have. And it's
Yep.
that last little bit where, it's not always a square peg in a square hole. It's often quite a bit of a mixture. And what that means is that what your property is enrolled to collect in terms of, SDA funding might not be exactly what the tenant has attached in their plan. And so there, we call it bucket of SDA funding, doesn't quite match what the house is enrolled to receive.
Yep.
And we have to take the lower of the two. And so quite often there'll be a gap of maybe 30% in that person's SDA funding, that the investor will end up going, well, you know what, they're a good tenant. They want a long lease. They've also got a spouse who's going to contribute to the rent. And they've lived in the area for 20 years, and I really feel like this is a good fit. So there's a lot of other things to consider, and that 70% of the income is really quite often realistic to what the market's actually producing in terms of maximum outcome. So I think it does take into account all of the different combinations, well, not all of, but a large majority of the combinations of funding people will come with, and it's reasonable.
Yeah, so look, they're the main changes. And look, if you look at all that as a whole, what kind of impact is this going to have on these really unscrupulous marketers and spruikers, and I just call them grifters?
Mm.
And how's that sort of going to impact their little modus operandi of bamboozling people and selling properties in shitty areas?
Mm. Well, we're hoping it'll move them away from those shitty areas. The median price point of a good SDA property will go up because they'll be coming into better locations where the land is dearer. They will also have to have more sophisticated investors purchasing SDA property because it's going to cut out that first home buyers. It's going to cut out anyone that can't come up with a 20% deposit. And it's going to cut out anyone that doesn't have an income to withstand a 6-month vacancy
Yeah.
minimum.
Or and carry the
So it
buffer.
is really
Yeah.
going to, it's going to shrink their investor inquiry quite considerably.
Yeah.
Now, I'm sure they'll come up with some creative solutions around some of those hurdles. But some of the referral partners we've worked with, in particular in the last 12 months, we've been chatting through it the last couple of days, and they said, well, you know what? Most of our investors actually tick all those boxes anyway because
Yep.
we sell good stock, and they have to meet most of those market, check boxes before they can afford the good stock, which we only sell good stock. So I think it is really going to tighten the market. It is going to improve the location factors, and it is going to de-risk.
As you're sharing that just now, there's, I've said before, my social media reels and the algorithms, I look at a lot of SDA stuff, and there's one in particular I'm thinking of, starts with D, that used to always see those videos. I haven't seen one of those videos for a couple of weeks. I just realised.
Wonder why?
Yeah,
Yeah, the marketing
wonder
spend's
why.
probably being pulled while they readjust their target market.
Looking to
And
re-strategize.
yes, and look, we can't make them go away. And there's been a lot of positive that's come out of some of the things. But redirecting them is 100% a good move. So
One of the
yeah,
one of the alternatives I'm seeing starting to pop up is all this co-living stuff. Again, chasing those 12, 15, 18% returns, co-living, which is
mm,
4 or 5 micro units within a house that are designed for anybody, not just a person with disability. So
yeah,
keep an eye on that. No doubt they'll be starting to get built in crappy areas on the outer fringes of greenfield developments and still struggle with tenants.
yeah,
So there's
yeah. And I
always a
think that
way for grifters to grift.
yeah, that's what I said. Creative solutions. They're very good at it. And we're good at finding creative solutions around maximizing income. But yeah, look, it's an interesting change and one I think the industry really needed about 2 years ago.
Mhm.
As much as we fought for a decreased LVR or increased, I don't know which way you say it, over those early years, what it meant is when lenders did come into the market and say, yes, we're going to lend to SDA, there was still so much learning to be done. And
Mm.
unfortunately, not enough red tape for people to jump through to really know what they're doing.
Well,
Um,
this is an example of the industry self-regulating. This hasn't come from
yeah,
government. It hasn't come from the NDIA. It's the money market saying we're hurting because there's some bad investments out there that we've missed.
yeah,
So we're tightening the belt. It's a
yeah,
good example of self-regulation, and they're all
yeah,
very, in my world, very sensible changes. For some people, it
yes,
might mean you miss out. And in the long run, it could be a good thing for you to miss out temporarily until you get some more runs on the board. And for
that's right.
others, it might get you out of what could have been a really bad property and into a much superior property. So
Yep,
the good
exactly.
changes, sensible, pragmatic. Um, yeah, I think it's great.
Just kind of putting the handbrake on. I've been explained as a handbrake recently, and I think it's quite a nice term in a lot of instances. So I think what they've done is they have applied a handbrake and just said, well, like slow up everybody, just chill. This is going to
Yep,
be okay, but you need to fit these things, otherwise we foresee that you're going to be hurting. So yeah, if you think it as a protection measure, if you've been counted out of the market for the time being, then go and do that research, really get to know it, buy a little investment property, tick your box, and then come back. The industry is still going to be here, and hopefully it'll be better and stronger than it was before.
agree. Well, I think that's
Mm.
us. That's about our 25 minutes there, Lauren, and it just flies. And with
It does.
hopefully this new platform works. We get it uploaded. We can get a larger audience and share this information. Um,
Excellent.
let's see how we go. Well,
Yeah.
fingers crossed.
Uh, yeah, perfect. Nice to see you, Dave. Lovely to
Thanks, Liz.
talk as always.
Yes, you too. Bye.
Bye.